Lorraine Maddox was a woman who lived in order. Early 40s, she was the kind of woman who answered the door before the second knock. And if something hurt, she didn't say it. She swallowed it, locked the jaw, and carried on. Her daughter Ivy, 22, was quieter. Thin, pale, hair usually tucked behind both ears, as if always listening. She went to Jefferson State part-time, studied visual art, mostly portraiture, mostly charcoal. Rarely left the house unless it was with her mother. Never missed church. Never missed Sunday dinner. And behind all that stillness was something harder to name. A stare that lingered too long, a nervous tapping, 2 fingers, always in sequence. And when she smiled, there was no warmth in it, just precision, a copy of someone else's. Diagnosed at 17 with borderline personality disorder. 2 years later, the schizophrenia came. Voices, disorientation, obsession. But she was high-functioning, they said, medicated, stable. As long as she stayed inside the walls of that house, everything was fine. From the outside, they looked like a small, close-knit family, the kind where birthdays are still celebrated with balloons and cake from the store. The kind where "I love you" is said twice before hanging up the phone. But inside, the air was a little too still, the furniture a little too untouched. And Ivy, she never let her mother out of her sight for long. Then came Marcus, 25 years old, local fitness trainer, thick arms, shaved head, always smelled of cinnamon gum and cologne that lingered long after he left. He met Lorraine in passing, at the gym, of all places. They flirted, laughed, texted, and within 2 weeks he was coming by at night after Ivy had gone to bed. What Lorraine never told him, what she buried under lipstick and dim light, was that Ivy knew Marcus already. They had dated, briefly, 9 months before. It hadn't ended well. There were no blow-ups, no restraining orders, just silence. Ivy withdrew, stopped drawing for 3 weeks, wrote pages and pages in a notebook, and burned them in the fireplace the day after he stopped calling. Lorraine knew all this, and still she invited Marcus in. The affair was secret, carefully managed. Text messages deleted, perfume reapplied. Marcus never stayed the night. But secrets don't sit still. They move. They rot. And Ivy, she felt it. She began acting wrong, not louder, just different. She'd go into the backyard at 2 a.m. and stand barefoot in the grass. When Lorraine asked why, she said the ground made her feel tethered. She stopped eating meals with her mother, ate alone, in silence, and she started talking to someone who wasn't there. Soft whispers in the laundry room, laughter in the bathroom. Neighbors noticed too. There was a night in late July, humid, dead quiet, when Mrs. Elkins from next door said she heard something that froze her in place. Softly. Ivy screamed, not like she was scared, not like she needed help. It was territorial. That's the word, like a wolf when someone touches her pups. Lorraine chalked it up to stress. She said Ivy's meds were off, that she was seeing a new therapist. But the way she avoided eye contact told a different story. And Marcus? He kept coming back. By early August, Ivy stopped going to church altogether. She drew obsessively, sketchbooks filled with images of her mother's face over and over again, each one more distorted than the last. Eyes missing, teeth exaggerated, hands clawed. Lorraine found one in the trash with the words, "She took him, she took him, she took him," scrawled beneath in red pen. Still, no one asked questions. Not the pastor, not Lorraine's co-workers, not the neighbors who saw the lights flick on at 3 a.m. every night for a week straight. Lorraine thought she was keeping the secret locked up. She thought she was being careful, but Ivy already knew. And she wasn't just watching, she was waiting. By October, Ivy had stopped sleeping through the night. The lights in her bedroom clicked on and off at odd hours. Sometimes she'd just stand in the doorway, watching her mother as she slept, face blank, arms hanging limp at her sides. Lorraine noticed but said nothing, until the day Ivy picked up her phone by mistake. Lorraine had left it on the kitchen counter, face up. She was in the backyard hanging clothes. It only took a moment. Ivy walked past, screen lit up. Marcus's name. The message was short. Last night was perfect. Your body drives me insane. There were others, dozens of them, photos, recordings, some sent at times when Lorraine claimed to be working late or volunteering, some sent from the living room. From this house, Ivy read each one, and when Lorraine came inside, Ivy was sitting at the table, still holding the phone. She didn't cry, she didn't yell, she simply said, "You gave birth to me, and now you're sleeping with the thing I bled for." After that, everything crumbled, quietly but quickly. Ivy stopped going to therapy. Her medication bottles were later found stuffed behind the bathroom sink, full and untouched. She drew obsessively. Her notebooks were no longer faces, but raw anatomy, hearts, lungs, intestines arranged like bouquets. She scribbled teeth in the margins, flesh stripped from limbs, peeled like fruit. The walls of her bedroom became a kind of shrine, drawings taped side by side, floor to ceiling. In the center, taped over her bed, a rendering of Lorraine. But the eyes were gone, just black voids where they should have been. At the bottom, written in Ivy's hand, "She gave me life. I'll take it back." Lorraine tried to confront her once. Just once. It was October 28th. She stepped into Ivy's room, gentle, careful, hands open. She asked her to talk. Ivy wouldn't sit. Instead, she stared for a long time. Then, without blinking, whispered, "You stole my soul. You climbed inside my chest and stole it while I slept." Then the scream came, deep, guttural, so loud the neighbor across the hall dropped her wineglass. Lorraine left the room without another word. A week later, the knives started disappearing. Kitchen drawers that used to be full sat oddly light. The meat cleaver was gone. So were the paring knives, the fillet knife, the sharpening rod. Lorraine never reported it. On November 2nd, a stray cat went missing. Local kids had named it Biscuit. Friendly thing, always on porches, always fed scraps. 2 days later, its remains were found in a trash bag near the back alley. Dissected, labeled. Sections marked in red pen, soft, still warm, mine. Lorraine still didn't say anything. Whether it was fear or guilt, we'll never know. But she stayed, she cooked, she cleaned. She even made Ivy's favorite, fried catfish with lemon slices and kale, on the evening of November 4th, a Sunday. Dinner was set. Gospel music played from the little Bluetooth speaker in the corner. Lorraine, dressed in her blue church blouse, stood at the stove, humming. She didn't hear Ivy come in, the sound of her footsteps masked by the sizzling oil. Ivy wore Marcus's hoodie, the one with the sleeve torn at the elbow. She hadn't worn it in months. She didn't say a word. Lorraine turned around, maybe to ask her to wash up, maybe to offer a plate, and Ivy lunged. There was no scream, no pleading, just impact. One slash across the throat, deep enough to nick the spine, then another, and another. 47 stab wounds in total. The blade entered with such force that portions of the ribs were splintered. Post-mortem bite marks covered Lorraine's cheeks and clavicle. Chunks of tissue were missing. 2 internal organs were found partially consumed. The coroner described it as one of the most animalistic scenes he'd ever encountered. But that wasn't what horrified police the most. It was what she was doing when they arrived. At 7:42 p.m., a neighbor dialed 911. "There's this sound. It's this wail, this screech. Not human. Something happened next door. Something bad." The first officers on scene arrived within 4 minutes. The door was unlocked. What they saw made the youngest officer vomit in the bushes. Lorraine's body was slumped against the lower kitchen cabinets. Blood soaked the floor, pooled around her feet, still warm. Ivy was crouched beside her, head tilted, hands bloodied to the wrist. She was humming, a soft lullaby. Eyes open, no tears. One detective years later would say, "She didn't look possessed. She didn't look angry. She looked satisfied." If you're still watching, you already know how deep this goes. What started as a quiet mother-daughter household turned into a story no one will ever fully understand. If these stories speak to something in you, if they leave you haunted, disturbed, or unable to look away, hit the like button. Drop your city in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe. because what you've just heard is only the beginning. When officers approached her, Ivy Maddox simply stood up from the kitchen floor, blood still glistening on her hands, and turned to face them. Her expression was vacant. She offered her wrists, palms turned outward, and said one thing. I took her out of me. No struggle, no explanation. By the time they placed her in the back of the squad car, she had started humming again. Same tune, same rhythm, rocking side to side like a child on a swing. At the station, she barely blinked. The detective leading the interrogation, a man with over 2 decades of experience, later told reporters, she wasn't insane the way people think of it. She was fractured, detached from everything except this idea that her mother had stolen something intangible, something that belonged to her. During the first interview, she referred to Lorraine only once. She called her the thief of my soul. The words came without emotion. Forensic psychologists were brought in within 48 hours. What they found disturbed even the most seasoned among them. Ivy was diagnosed with severe persistent psychosis, delusional jealousy disorder, and signs of Capgras syndrome, a rare condition in which the sufferer believes a loved one has been replaced by an identical imposter. They concluded that at some point in the prior year, Ivy had stopped believing Lorraine was her mother. Instead, she saw a stranger in her mother's body, a woman who had taken Marcus, taken her home, taken her identity. In her mind, the betrayal wasn't romantic, it was existential. The media caught the scent and descended like wolves. Headlines screamed across televisions and newsstands. Cannibal daughter kills mother over ex-boyfriend. Horror in Birmingham, the Maddox incident. Alabama's real-life Hannibal. Reporters camped outside the facility. Talk shows ran theories. One true crime podcast dubbed her the Devourer. What never made it into the press, though, what never reached the public, were the letters. 12 of them. Found folded in neat stacks beneath Ivy's mattress, each addressed to Marcus. Written in ink, every letter began the same way. To the man who woke me up, and ended the same. She got in the way. I fixed it. Are you proud of me now? There were sketches too. A heart being pulled from a body with bare hands. A woman tied to a chair, her face missing. Marcus's name etched in pencil between lines, over and over. When questioned, Marcus's reaction was cold, distant. I didn't know they were related, he said. Not at first. Lorraine and I had already been seeing each other for a month before I found out. When I did, I walked away. He denied any responsibility, claimed no knowledge of Ivy's condition. When asked if he felt guilt, he shrugged. It was just a bad situation, nothing more. Lorraine's family, fractured long before the killing, refused to hold a funeral. Her remains were cremated quietly with no service. No obituary, just a small plaque in a cemetery no one visits. Ivy was declared unfit for trial. There would be no courtroom drama, no cross-examinations, no sentencing. Instead, she was committed to Briar Hill, a maximum security psychiatric facility in the northern part of the state. She remains there to this day under 24-hour surveillance, sedated, monitored. In her room, the walls are bare. The nurses removed all pens and paper after an incident where she bit her own arm, trying to write in blood. She hasn't spoken Marcus's name since 2019. She hasn't spoken her mother's at all. But once, just once, a nurse claims to have heard her whisper, I only wanted her to see me. And so we're left with questions. Did Lorraine know the risk? Did she suspect her daughter's obsession wasn't just emotional, but territorial, something deeper, older, more primal? Could this have been stopped? Had she not kept the relationship secret? Had Ivy gotten help earlier? Had Marcus drawn the line before crossing it? Would any of it have mattered? Or was this always going to end the way it did, with a mother's body cold on the linoleum floor and a daughter humming lullabies to the blood in her hands? Sometimes in stories like this, people look for meaning. They search for a lesson, a message, a warning. But maybe in the case of Ivy Maddox, there is none, only silence. And the question that hangs in the air long after the blood has dried, what do we become when the people we love stop being ours? This wasn't just a murder. It wasn't just a mental breakdown. And it wasn't simply a case of jealousy, rage, or betrayal. This was an unraveling, a slow, terrifying disintegration of identity and reason. A young woman caught between obsession and perception, held hostage by the very mind that told her she was being erased. People always say they'd know if something was wrong, but Lorraine Maddox didn't know. Or maybe she did. Maybe she saw the signs, read the sketchbook pages, heard the strange humming at night, and convinced herself it was nothing. Sometimes the most dangerous thing we do is ignore what's right in front of us, because we love it. Ivy didn't just kill her mother, she devoured her in every sense. She consumed the woman who raised her, fed her, loved her, and then possibly envied her. She stripped her of her role, her freedom, her body. This wasn't a moment, it was years in the making, a toxic thread woven quietly through their bond, tightening each time trust was broken or a truth was withheld. So we ask you now, what do you think? Was Ivy just a victim? A young woman failed by a broken system? Another case file in a long list of tragedies brought on by untreated illness? Or was there something else inside her? Something far older than therapy could reach? A hunger for control, for closeness so complete it blurred the line between love and possession? Could you see it in the sketches? In the silence before the scream? In the way she wore Marcus's hoodie like a second skin? It's easy to label her. It's harder to look at her and see the human, the frightened, fragile, fractured person behind the headlines. Because if we admit Ivy was just like the rest of us, just one bad break, one betrayal, one untreated wound away, then what does that say about us? Where's the line between sanity and madness? And how sure are we that we'd never cross it?